Day 834 off the grid. Wow, day 834. It's amazing how fast you start collecting the days. That's a lot of days I've been documenting this stuff, eh? Not a video every day, but if not a video, a text blog every day. For 834 days. Amazing. But anyway, obviously today's video is going to be all about the Xantrex again, because today I've decided to bite the bullet and make the move and install it in the A shed. I just had the meter on it before on the frequency range, this meter here, and I've actually determined it is 50 Hz after all. It's not 60 Hz. It must have just been one of those cheap watt meters giving me a false reading. So it's 50 Hz at 230 volts, which simplifies a lot of things. I'm just doing a load of dishes at the moment in the dishwasher here, but once it reaches the dry cycle, I'm going to shut off the dishwasher, shut off the Xantrex, and go over to the A shed and shut off the Chinese inverter, the power jack, and decommission it over there and install this in its place. And that'll be the end of this chapter. Hopefully it'll go in there and it'll be working, and we shall see it operational in there when I'm finished. That's the plan, so better get on with it. Here we are in shed A, having the last look at the power jack 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter in its original post, where it's been for a number of years now. It's been for the 2 1/4, just a little bit more than 2 1/4 years we've been off the grid. Obviously 834 days it's been here while we've been off grid, but it was there for a year or more before that, running the fridge and the freezer. So for a Chinese inverter, it's done pretty well, and it's had a lot of hard starts on that fridge and stuff, but it still continues to go. So I think I've got my money's worth out of this. Not that it isn't going anymore, of course it's still going perfectly, but in this primary role it's going to be retired, but it's provided stellar service up until now. Of course I will be enacting it in a secondary role, and we've just got to decide what that's going to be. I suppose I should show the wiring that we've got under here at the moment. It's pretty basic. Comes straight from the battery bank down here. Positive terminal, negative terminal. Comes straight up through this car audio fuse holder. I don't really like these, but this was a brand new one, so it's been alright. I haven't had any problems with it, but I am going to replace that. And then straight into the inverter. There's obviously no switch, which is a little bit silly, but this spends all its time on, so why bother? If you want to disconnect it, you got to disconnect it, but I'm going to put a switch on the next install of the Xantrex. Okay, the dishwasher is on the rinse cycle, and I'm going to turn it off when it gets to the dry cycle. So it's time to decommission the power jack. So the big turn off, and notice the light went out as well. That's because the light runs off this inverter. That's why we've still got this one that runs off 12 volts, and this one here, the emergency light. But of course I'll just plug this big one into something else that is on at the moment. Okay, there we have it. I've just turned on the inverter for the first time. I haven't even plugged the loads in yet, but it's in its new location now. And it's going. Yay. Now we'll just have to get the loads sorted out. I decided to use the 63 amp AC circuit breaker rather than this horrid old car audio style fuse, because I think this inverter needs a bit of a lower impedance power feed to it, because when you think about it, you got all this thick cable, but then you got this tiny little bit of wire inside there which is the fuse, whereas circuit breakers have nice fat contacts until they move apart. Much better. I may upgrade this to something sort of more proper for the job, but that'll do for now, or I may not. I should actually mount it, but I just needed to get things going quickly today. It's been a bit too long. I wanted to see this inverter in place. Had to add an extra piece of timber because the spacing of course is different with this inverter. I've mounted it in the one position that they don't recommend for a couple of reasons. One, it's the same way as the power jack was, and that seems to be okay for me in here. And two, it sucks in from the top and blows at the bottom, which means that's going to maximize the potential for sucking in clean air and minimize the potential for sucking in battery acid mist air. So if you had it the other way around, which you wouldn't have it the other way around, but if you had it sideways, it would increase the chances of sucking in the battery acid air. And for what I paid for this piece of kit, I don't really want to deal with that. Truth of the matter is though, is I nearly paid as much for the power jack, I think, as I paid for this, but the power jack was brand new. This was well used second hand. But it's a Xantrex though, which is way cooler. In fact, I'm almost starting to become a bit of a Xantrex user now, because I've got the Xantrex Pro-Sine here. I've got the Freedom Marine inverter there, which of course is actually a Xantrex. Tucked in behind there, there's a little Xantrex inverter, 1000 watt MSW inverter. And finally the C12, which runs the night batteries. All Xantrex kit. Not everything, of course, is Xantrex, but I've got quite a lot of it now, eh? So that's kind of cool. Anyway, let's go and plug the bugger in and get the fridge and freezer running again. I'll probably have to run them like at a different time than they would normally be, just to catch up with the fact that it's been 2 or so hours without the power onto them. And this is how I'm going to leave the Xantrex set up for tonight. The fridge has been running, the freezer's now running, catching up with itself. All the other incidental loads that run off the circuit, because this is one of the main circuits in the house, because it's always on, so it's kind of more like the conventional grid power, you know, for things like digital clocks and whatnot, where people just expect there to be power there. Oh, and of course the ding-dongs, we can't forget about the ding-dongs. It also runs, of course, this power board here, which has got this interesting little timer plugged into it now. If you watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that this has been rewired as a countdown timer, but I'm not using it at the moment on here. I'll put that back. I'm using an ordinary time switch wired as a time switch. And this is one of the things that I'm doing to deal with the fact that today is actually the end of a fortnight without the generator. The day this arrived and I fixed it was the day that the generator went fut. So that was 2 weeks ago, you know. On this very day I get it installed. So we've had 2 weeks without the generator. We're heading deeper and deeper into autumn. There's been 2 cyclones. Admittedly, one wasn't that much really for us, but there's been a lot of bad weather. So one of the things that I've ended up doing to keep the fridge and freezer going quite happily is, rather than using the 10 volt bank on occasion when the batteries are a bit low, what I've actually done is programmed this timer to mimic the one inside that's running the freezer. The actual freezer, not the fridge's freezer, the actual freezer, so that whenever the freezer's on an on cycle, the 10 volt bank is engaged, helping this 24 volt bank here to run the freezer. And if the freezer decides to be off through most of that cycle time, then it will help put a bit of charge back into these batteries from the 10 volt bank. And it seems to be working pretty good so far and not really winding down, although if we don't do something soon as we head deeper into autumn, there's going to be trouble. But I am working still on the wind turbine. I purchased some mechanical hardware today to help put the pole up, which is really cool. I didn't get a chance to play with any of it because I elected to do the Xantrex instead. And I'm glad I did, because After hearing how well our freezer as fridge runs on this, I was really hating hearing it back on the Chinese inverter, stammering and stuttering and trying to start and burning up the contacts and that PTC relay. I just really wanted it to be smooth. So that's why this is in. The meter's currently showing 7 amps. I put the clamp meter on it before to confirm that. It was actually 6.67 amps. Running the freezer and the other incidental loads, that's not bad. In fact, I think this might be a little more efficient than the Chinese inverter when it's running loads. So what it uses in extra power when it's not running loads may be more than paid back by the power it uses when it is actually running loads. Time will tell. Time will tell. The fan does spend most of the time off when it's not actually pumping out any power, so it's only drawing 800 milliamps, which is about 300 more than the Chinese inverter. But speaking of that, I've got one more thing to do, and that'll be over for day 834 off the grid, apart from cut some firewood, light the coal range for pie night. One more thing to do, and I'll show you that. Why not? This is going to be another epic. So here we go. We've come full circle. We're in the B shed again, but now the power jack inverter, the Chinese inverter, is sitting in here, clipped up. Oh, you can't see very well in this light, but clipped up with the crocodile leads. And it's running right now and finishing off the dishwasher cycle, which is just the dry cycle really. I thought it fitting to finish that off. And I'll probably leave this inverter here hooked up more or less like this. Maybe tidy up the cabling a little bit. But hooked up in here at least until we get a new generator, because it's turned out to be quite handy to have a source of sine wave power from this battery bank, because when this is eventually full, it's not used for running anything else in the house at this time of year, because it's a toaster oven usually. We can use it to run the dishwasher, so it's good to have a sine wave inverter so we can do that. I've been using the Xantrex, but the power jack runs the dishwasher just as well. You can't run the dishwasher off the modified square inverter like this one here though. That's only good for the toaster and the toaster oven. That's it really. Day 834 off the grid.